see what different people are talking about.
Yeah.
Mine are
You
kind of
mean-
boring. It's technical, so there's, it's not always that much fun, but
Yeah.
okay, we have folks in the waiting room. I'm gonna wait until 11. Now, do you want to let them in or do you want me to?
I will do it.
Okay.
Okay, we
Here's
are live
June.
now.
All right, I'm going to start the recording. Hi, June.
You are host now. Can you please make me the co-host?
Yes, we'll do, Nancy. Let's do that right now. Whoopsie. Nancy, make host. All right, you are co-host.
Thank you. Have a great session.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Hi, welcome. There's Jim. Hey, Jim, how's it going?
Really well.
Really
How are
well. Did
you?
I catch you snacking?
Well, I had a late breakfast and now I'm having a late lunch,
Okay, it's all good.
but I crowd everything in between. So I've already had 2 classes today.
Okay, wow. Busy, busy. Joe, I love your picture that you have on your video. It's
Thank you very
beautiful.
much.
Where
Thank
is
you.
that? Where is that?
That's in Lisle, Illinois. It's a place called the Morton Arboretum.
Oh, it's
And
stunning.
they've got this, they've got 5 of these things like this. There's another one here.
Hmm.
Let me show you that one because I also have that in my background. So you can take a look
Wow.
at that. There's another one.
Oh, look at that. Wow.
Yeah.
Stunning.
There's a total of 5 of these things installed. And if you look at that first one again, you'll get an idea of the size by looking at the people inside that picture there.
Yeah,
And
look at
they're
that.
very, very close. I mean, they're not far away. That's
Okay.
close by. And that display will be there for about a year. So
How
if you're-
lucky. Yeah, how
if
lucky
you're-
you are to have that in your
yeah,
backyard.
that's only a couple miles from my home.
Okay.
And they're also the junior college. For some strange reason, the junior college got a showing at their art gallery of these the Frida,
Yeah, sure. Frida
Who's been
Kahlo. Yeah.
yeah, and they've got a showing of her stuff this year, and I guess her stuff doesn't get shown that much
Hmm.
as a focus,
Yeah.
and this is all her stuff. So
Wow. Well, you know
yeah.
what, Joe, we should have you host a session, host like an interest group or a social hour and share this. That would just be fabulous. It's gorgeous. Wow.
Well, I don't know if you think that it might be of interest. Yeah, I could go out, take a couple pictures of stuff. I was going to go to that in your town, but I couldn't go last night because I was gonna show some of these pictures.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I know, and those interest groups aren't generally set up for screen sharing, so
Okay.
I didn't know. I'd have to put them all in my
Sure.
background and then show them via background, which could be
Okay.
done.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
So.
Well, it's just an idea. So thanks for sharing today.
Good idea. Thank you, Vicki.
Yeah, yeah,
I like
sure.
that idea.
Yeah, and I'll pass it along too, Joe, just so that I'll tap Norman.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going
amazing
to an
Norman.
ambassadors meeting a little later today.
Okay,
So,
got it.
okay.
Wonderful. Well, welcome everyone. It's great to see everyone here today. I'm going to go ahead and get started. We probably have another minute left before we close down the waiting room. And that reminds me, you've probably noticed in the last week or two, we've instituted some new security measures And can I ask everybody just to mute their microphones? I just hear a little bit of background noise. If everybody could just mute. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Again, we've instituted some new security measures. Unfortunately, about 2 weeks ago, we had some Zoom bombing incidents. So as a result, we take our learners' security and your experience very seriously. And so to us, not having a secure place for people to come and learn is just unacceptable. So thank you for your patience as we figure this out. And I bring it up because, just so you know, after 5 minutes after class starts now, if there are any folks in the waiting room, unfortunately, they won't be allowed in, but they can watch the class via live streaming. So just, an FYI for those of you who are just coming in after this. I also wanted to introduce Nancy. Nancy's with our Get Set Up support team. Yay, support. We love our support, folks. Nancy is going to be here today helping me monitor the chat. If there are any technical issues you may be having, please let us know. So that's Nancy. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you today just to start us to kick this all off. Let's do it this way. And I'll share and we'll share. And just so that you know, I have 2 monitors that I work off of. And so sometimes I'll move my head back and forth because I have certain things on one monitor and others on a different monitor. So that's me going back and forth. Sorry about that. All right. Well, first of all, welcome. Welcome, everyone. My name is Vicki. I am a Get Set Up guide here. And just a little bit about me. I am calling from San Jose, California. It's in Northern California, in the heart of Silicon Valley. So not surprisingly, I worked in high tech for over 30 years, doing a number of different things: technical support, technical training, instructional design. I have taught folks from around the world. I've taught people who are very technical. And I have taught folks who maybe like yourselves are just starting to dip their toes into this world of technology. And being a guide with Get Set Up allows me to do what I love best, and that's educate folks about technology. So a little bit about me. I'm excited to be here today with you. We here at Get Set Up, we're a learning organization. Ideally, we love it when people turn their cameras on. I understand that some folks may be in the middle of a meal, trying to cram all your classes in. Maybe your camera's not working well. This is a personal choice. I leave it up to you. We do love it when we can see you. Everybody else can see each other. It makes it more interactive, but I leave this up to you. Our class is being recorded today, and if you would like a copy of the recording, you can email us at help@getsetup.io and just let us know the name of the class as well as the date of the class that you attended. And today we are having folks join us via live stream, so welcome. You can see and hear everything we're doing today in class, but I always recommend that folks go to our Get Set Up website, register for classes, because that way you can fully participate. You can enter questions or comments in the chat. You can ask, unmute yourself and ask questions. And also, I'll be sending after class notes today. Everyone will be getting an email. And it's only for those folks who've registered for classes that will get that email. Lastly, we here at Get Set Up, again, we're a training organization. Guides are not paid to promote any specific products or services. It's all about the training for us. We've made it a lot easier for folks to invite others to join classes. So if you really love the classes, the social hours, the interest groups that you've been taking here on Get Set Up, let others know, share the learning, as we like to say. When you register for a class, we now enable you to just click on invite a friend. It's as easy as that. And by the way, we've been really coming up to speed on our mobile application. And so as the weather has been getting nicer, as certain things are, lifting, and we're slowly starting to be able to, be out and about, bring classes with you. You can watch classes on your iPhone now with our mobile app. It's all there for you. Let's see, what are we going to cover today? So first of all, I want to make sure everybody really understands, like, what is the cloud? What is it made of? Some of the benefits of using the cloud, how you can make it work for you. And then we're going to talk a little bit about what services are typically available in the cloud. Let's talk about what is the cloud. And again, if anybody has any questions today, please just feel free to unmute yourself, ask, make comments. I love it when people share their experiences as well, or simply enter your question in the chat. What is the cloud? So when we think about the cloud, we all have at least one device at home these days, right? We have our laptops or a desktop. Maybe it's a Mac. I'm working off of a Windows PC. And on that PC, on that desktop, you actually have you have physical files. Your data is currently stored on your hard drive. Now, that's within your house. So we call that local. So you've locally stored your data. When we talk about the cloud, what we're talking about are physical computers. Now, they're outside of your house, but these are computers that are stored in a facility. There's real cabling that connects the computers, and these computers in that facility are running different applications. And so all of these different computers, and they're located, these facilities, they're also called data centers. We'll talk about that next. They're located across the country, across the world, around the world. And so these are physical computers, physically connected with cables. They're running outside your home in another building that is designed to be running these computers. And so it's this, collective of these different computers in these data centers that are around the country, around the world. This is what we call the cloud. That's what we refer to it as. And so let me know if you have any questions. So this is completely separate from any computers or devices you have sitting in your home. And so that's what we mean by the cloud. All right, let's talk a little bit about data centers. And I don't know if anyone has actually been in a data center. I have. And Terry, did you have a question? I just saw your hand go up.
Yes, I had a question. Is the cloud like OneDrive? Is that the same thing?
Yes, it is. And we're going to talk about OneDrive. Great question.
Okay.
We'll be talking about that. Yep, you're spot on. Exactly. And when we talk about the data centers, okay, so remember the cloud, it's these physical computers that are sitting in a data center. A data center is a facility. It's specifically designed to house computers. So it's temperature controlled. It has special flooring, special lighting, cabling, power. And what you see here, this is a picture of a data center. This is a very pretty data center. I've been to data centers before. They're not always this pretty. Really, a data center, it can be a floor in a facility. It can be multiple floors. And usually what you're seeing is racks and racks of computers that are stored, stacked one on top of each other. They may be in these very pretty glass cases. They may not. They're all hooked up together. These computers that are in the cloud, they're more powerful and they're faster typically than the computers we have at home. Carolyn, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you. As I was waiting to get into the class, I got a message on my laptop. It says, iCloud storage is almost full. Upgrade your storage to keep using iCloud. Can you help with that to tell me what I'm supposed to do?
Yeah, unfortunately, I won't be able to address that. We do have another class that talks about iCloud, but if you want to just hang on after class today, I can talk a little about that with you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And Joe, did you have a question? Your hand is up too.
Yes. You might want to point out that when we talk about these data centers being filled with computers, you're basically, I mean, you can see some monitors there in the background, but most of these do not have monitors. They do not have keyboards. They are just boxes that store memory. I mean, that's really what they are. It's just a bunch of data banks. If this were a science fiction film in the 50s, we would see all these tapes running on the machine.
Yeah.
That's basically what this data center is containing. It's not the keyboards, it's not the pictures, it's just storage.
Yep, you got it, Joe. Exactly. It's just computers stacked one on top of each other. These computers tend to be a lot faster and more powerful than the ones that we have at home. Now, these data centers can be located, they're typically located around the country and around the world. And as Joe mentioned, you may see it's maybe difficult, but there are a couple of monitors, but you're right. Most of the computers don't have monitors. They're just, CPUs stacked one on top of each other. Now, a data center may be owned by a company, Amazon, Google, Microsoft. They may own typically own their one or more data centers. A company may rent out space in their data center so other companies can use the facilities as well. So again, when you are working in the cloud, what that means is you may be running an application that's actually running on one of these computers in a data center. And very often these computers are dedicated either to just doing data storage, Joe mentioned that, or, maps, if you use, Google or Apple Maps, they're rendering maps. I'll give you another example of that. Nancy, do we have a question here?
Yeah, in the chat box.
Oh, okay. Judy has a great question. Thanks, Nancy. Do you have a choice of having your documents in the cloud? What about security? So when we talk about using your documents, putting your documents in the cloud, this is your choice. By default, when you are working off of your, let's say your PC, whether it's a MacBook, a Windows, I have a Windows machine here today, your data is stored locally on your hard drive of your PC. Now it's a little bit different when you're working off of a smartphone or a tablet. They don't have hard drives, so you actually are working off of the cloud when you're, working off of, an application. But if you're working off of a PC, it's up to you to decide if you would like to store some of your data or all of your data on the cloud, or keep some or all of it on your PC. And in terms of security, really, that's a great question. Thank you for asking. These companies, these cloud companies, their business depends on their ability to keep your data safe. And so there's a lot of monitoring, a lot of security measures that go into their services. Now, I can't sit here and tell you 100%, nothing will ever happen. If a hacker wants to get in, they're going to get in, but just know that these companies, some of the big ones, or even just any company that's going to be offering services in the cloud, their livelihoods depend on keeping your data secure. So lots and lots of security go into these cloud applications. Anne, did you have a question?
I have a friend that has an email address that is something cloud.com. So does that mean that everything's being processed and stored through one of
Yeah.
these data centers?
That's exactly right. Yes. So think about, let me give you an example, and thanks for the question. So, I have my iPhone here, right? And let's just say I'm using one of the map applications on my phone. Maybe it's Google Maps, maybe it's Apple Maps, and I type in an address because I want to get a map. Well, when I type out an address in that app, what's happening is it is going up into the cloud, one of these computers. And if I'm working off of, Apple's map application, it's going into the Apple data center. And one of these computers, or many of these computers, their job is to render maps and then send them back to you. So the maps aren't actually held on your phone or your tablet or even your PC. They're actually stored and processed on one of these computers in the cloud. And the same thing is true when you're working off of email. For example, Google Mail, Gmail. I use Gmail and I use a few other emails. When I'm sending a message via Gmail, it's going into one of Google's data centers around the country, around the world, and it is being processed by one of these computers sitting in a data center. So that's really what's happening, if you can kind of get your brain around that one. So hopefully that
Can I
answered
ask
your
a
question. Yes, you can.
Hi. So I actually took a class with you where you mentioned about cloud, where you can use that to store some of your files and free up data on your phone and stuff. So I have a phone that's a Samsung. So I guess on the phone instead it had Samsung Cloud. So some of the PDFs I sent to Samsung Cloud, but now if it's in the cloud and you want to see it before I delete it from the phone, right? Because I don't want to delete it from the phone and then it deletes from the cloud. How do you retrieve the stuff that's in the cloud?
Sure. So great question, Mabel. And that also brings up something I wanted to mention when we're talking about data centers. Now, as technology has gotten better, and you'll notice we talked about companies, very often some of the larger companies will own their own data center, own and operate. In addition to companies, corporations, you have governments that have their own data center, universities may have their own and operate data centers. And other organizations. But as technology has improved, as pricing has, storage is less expensive, in recent years, what we've done is we've enabled consumers like you and me to also store data in a data center. And that's, when we talk about if you use your Google Drive, or if you have iCloud or Microsoft's OneDrive, what you're doing is you're actually storing your personal data on one of these computers in the cloud. And so to answer your question, Mabel, when you're using, so if you're on a smartphone or you're not actually storing data on a hard drive, you do have some temporary memory where you can store information. I know there's like a file system. It's separate unless you're doing file syncing. You can really, it's this one copy in the cloud. And we're going to talk about this idea of a master copy. So Mabel, hang on to this question because I'm going to answer it in another couple of slides, if that's okay with you. Great question. So any questions about data centers, what you're looking at here, what they are? No, okay, just stop me. Let me know. So we talked about this idea that computers in the cloud, specifically when they're housed in these data centers, they're connected. So not only are they connected within a data center, but data centers are connected to other data centers. So all of these computers that are running in the cloud, they're all connected to each other. And now typically in the US, we use cabling, we store our cabling under streets. So sometimes if you see crews working on streets, they're either laying a sewage line or they're laying cable. And actually, if you were to open up a manhole on a street, you may see cabling tucked in underneath. So we lay our cabling in the street, in the roads underneath. And at some point, when you run out of land, that cabling needs to continue under the ocean. And that's how we connect computers from continent to continent. And so what you're seeing here, we call these submarine cables, and you see different cables here. So when cabling goes into the ocean, or if it comes back out of the ocean onto the land, it's encased in these pipes, just as you see here. And I wanted to share with you, there's a company that makes something called a submarine cable map. I'm going to select this. I want to show it to you. Excuse me. This is the company called Telegeography. And this is a map of all the submarine cabling that has been laid around the world. And you can see there's a lot here. I'm going to click and drag this map so you can see more of the cabling. There's the Pacific Ocean. And then you can just see, I think it's pretty interesting just to see all the different cabling that is available that's been laid across the oceans. And again, there are some companies that actually own their own cables, the big companies, and sometimes they'll lease space on these cables to other companies. So I thought this was pretty interesting to take a look at this undersea network. Yeah, Joe, question.
What kind of security do they have on those cables? I mean, you can see these cables from above ground right here in your image that you have.
Yeah.
If somebody wanted to do some evil act of some sort or another, all they'd have to do is knock out those cables. Is there some kind of security around them?
That's a great question.
I'm just curious because I mean they have a distinctive look.
They do.
And you have the map of where they're located. I mean, it's not real specific, but it gives a general area where the cables are coming from. It would seem that they're very vulnerable to anyone who wants to create havoc with the internet. Is just bang a couple of those suckers, and you've got some serious problems with connectivity. I mean, it can be rerouted and stuff. We know that, it can go through other cables, but still, it would seem like that's a massive undertaking to try and repair if one gets busted up.
I'm sure there is security. I'll be happy to do a little bit of research on that and send it as part of the after class notes, because you've piqued my interest as well. I know that these cables, these pipes go into, there's a stations, when pipes come out of the ocean or going back in, they're coming in and out of these stations, actually, if you will, that are on land that are built to receive them. I don't know if these individual stations are responsible for security, but I'll be happy to take a look. Great question. Also, yeah, sure. You'll notice that we have this data center map. If I click on this link, this is showing us, supposedly all the different data centers that are around the world. I'm going to be honest with you, most companies don't really advertise where their data centers are for security reasons, as you might imagine. And so more than likely, this map is not really up to date, but it gives you an idea just of where data centers might be located, are located. Like, for example, if you look in the United States, there are more data centers there. Companies are not advertising where their data centers are located. Judy has a question. iCloud, OneDrive, Google Drive, they're all the same. They're actually, these cloud services, they're different companies that offer different applications. They do the same thing, cloud storage, but they actually have their own little clouds, which we'll talk about. But great question. Can you get by deleting the two and just staying with one cloud program? Yes, you can. It's entirely up to you. And when we're going to talk a little bit more about these individual cloud storage applications and the different companies that make them. So you can use multiple. I have a couple of different cloud storage applications that I use, one for work, one for personal. It's just, I started using one, and then for work, I started using a separate one. So, but it's entirely up to you. You can use separate cloud storage apps or just pare it down to one. Sure. All right, great questions. I love it. And let me know if they're not being answered, if you have, additional questions. The World Wide Web. So these computers, I talked about the fact that in the cloud, these clusters of computers, they're often running something specific, whether it's rendering maps for your map applications on your phone or mobile devices. Maybe you're doing some online banking. And when you request to have your, display your balance, that request is being sent to a computer in a data center that is simply responsible for running maybe one banking application or doing something specific for, maybe it's just storing banking data. And some of you have probably heard by now this term, the World Wide Web, the WWW. Now, really, what this term means, it represents various websites that are also stored on these computers in the cloud. So when you open up a browser and you go to getsetup.io, you're actually going to a data center, you're going to a specific computer that is housing the Get Setup website. And so really this term World Wide Web, it really means this collection of websites, web pages that are out there in the cloud. And so there are a lot of different terms that have been, thrown out there. So we're just trying to help you make sense of them. Now, we've had lots of great questions about cloud storage. So when we talk about the cloud, individual companies will have maintain their own cloud. And so remember, the cloud is really, it can be a cluster. A cloud can be a cluster of computers that are connected together. So Apple may have its own cloud. Google has its own cloud. Microsoft has its own cloud. And in these clouds, there are different services that are being offered. One of these services is cloud storage. So Judy, you had mentioned that you use Google Drive, you have iCloud, you have OneDrive. These are all applications that allow you to store your data on the cloud versus locally on your computer, on your PC or your desktop or your MacBook. And what's, as I mentioned before, because technology has improved so much and it's come down in cost, you're now able, as a consumer, an individual, to store your data in a company's cloud. And that's what cloud storage is. And again, it's up to you if you want to move some or all of your data off of your PC, off of your hard drive, onto the cloud using one of these cloud storage apps. Your call, and you can, as I mentioned, I keep my data in different cloud storage apps for various reasons, but this is one of the services that's available to you on the cloud. It's this ability to have your own personal little storage locker, if you will, on a cloud, in the cloud. Does anybody have any questions about that? About cloud storage, the fact that different companies have their own cloud, which is nothing more than their connected cluster of computers, which is living in a data center, or it can be across multiple data centers. All right, so cloud storage. How do you connect to the cloud? Because we're going to answer that in different ways. So, typically we have, maybe a PC at home, a laptop or MacBook. You may also have smartphones or tablets. But if you're working off of a PC, the way that you connect to the cloud is through an internet service provider. So you pay this provider, this ISP, monthly. It's a monthly fee, and they typically will send you, a modem and a cable, and that's, you install that, or they install it in their house, and that is how you connect from your PC, whatever is, devices that are in your home. You connect through that cable to your internet service provider, and then your internet service provider then connects you to the internet. And I know it's a very broad description of what's happening, but the goal here is not to get into the weeds, because we can do that very quickly. But just know that within your home, you connect your devices, specifically your PCs, to the internet through your internet service provider. And I've just shown you some examples. There are many more internet service providers, AT&T, Verizon, Comcast, depending upon where you are in the US, you'll have other options as well. Anne, did you have a question?
You probably get this asked all the time. What happens when you switch from one provider to another? Do you lose that storage, or is it still accessible?
No, it's always accessible. So your internet service provider,
Comcast to AT&T, what happens?
so you'll probably get a different modem. But in terms of cloud storage, your cloud storage application is separate from your internet service provider. So your internet service provider does have its own cloud with its own computers that are doing different things, providing different services. But when we talk about cloud storage, that is completely separate from your internet service provider. So let's say you're originally with AT&T and you use Google Drive to store your data. If you switch to Comcast, nothing happens to the data that you've stored in your Google Drive or your iCloud storage application. It's completely separate from your internet service provider. So that's why you can switch back and forth and nothing touches your data that's being stored in the cloud. And did that answer your question? Do you have a better idea of how this is working?
Yes, it did.
Okay.
It was the, could I continue to access it, or do I lose it? Thank you.
Nope. Yep. All right. Joe has some information. There are several different suggestions from acronyms and abbreviations website. Okay. So this is how we connect to the cloud. It's through your internet service provider.
Hey,
And
Rosemary,
then, yeah,
I'm taking a class right now.
I'm going to put Mary on mute there. And so again, it's your ISP that's responsible for connecting you to the internet and gaining access to different applications on computers that are running in the cloud. So lots of great questions, because this isn't something that you typically think about or maybe has been explained to you. Now, in addition to connecting your PCs to the internet, you may have other devices, mobile devices, such as your smartphone or your tablets, that also are connected to the internet. And that's done through your cellular service. And so the way this is working is, again, you'll pay a monthly fee to your cellular company. I think, we use, in my house, we use AT&T for our internet, our ISP, and then I think we're on Verizon for our cellular service. And I can't remember why we broke it up, but we did. So the way that your mobile devices are connected to the internet is through your cellular service. So again, you're going to pay them a monthly fee. And the way that this works is that when you're using your phone to get on the internet, maybe you're using it for your, let's go back to that mapping apps, you're using Apple Maps on your phone or Google Maps. Your phone will then send out a transmission to a cellular tower. Now, this cell tower is managed by your cell company, your cellular company. So you will be able to access, you'll transmit information, data, requests to the cell tower. Your cellular service has that cell tower connected via a cable. And so once you connect to the cell tower, it's up to the cellular service to connect you then to the internet. Again, a high level view of what's going on, but this is how it's working with your mobile devices. And so this is, you're going through your cellular service to connect to a cell tower. Once you're connected to the cell tower, the cell service takes over and they connect you to the internet. So again, big picture of how this is happening. Let me know if you have any questions, because people don't realize there's two different things going on here. One for your mobile devices, the other for your PCs. Let's talk. Oh yeah, Abby, did you have a question?
Yeah, if you're using your phone at home, using your Wi-Fi, then you're not using the cellular tower, you're using your regular service provider, correct?
So actually the way this works, you're very close. Thanks for the question. There are two different ways that your mobile devices can connect to the internet. One is through your cellular service provider, and the other is through Wi-Fi. And they're working a little bit differently. So when you use your cellular service to log on to the internet, run applications, you're actually going through this cell tower and you're actually utilizing your minutes. That's when you get charged minutes by your cell company. If you are logging on using Wi-Fi, you're not going through your cellular service. You are typically using, if there's a hotspot that's available to you, it's free, and you're not using up your minutes. So it's not, you're not going through one of these cell towers. Now, the difference is when you're using Wi-Fi, think of it as a straw. Wi-Fi, you have a really big, wide straw that you can, suck data back and forth. With a cellular service, it's a much smaller straw. But these cell towers, these can transmit data much longer distances than when you're on Wi-Fi. You're at the mercy of your hotspot. But it really depends on where you are and what you're doing. So there are two different ways that you can connect to the internet if you're on a mobile device, using Wi-Fi, which is free, or using your cellular service, which will charge you minutes, but it has a much further broadcasting capability. So yeah, great question. Let's talk a little bit about internet terms. So you'll see that people very often use the term internet and cloud interchangeably. So let me just go back for a minute. Whoops, I'm going forward, want to go back. When we talk about the internet refers to more of the infrastructure. So if it helps, think about it this way. You gain access to computers in the cloud over the internet. So although, you know, it's not terrible if you use internet and cloud interchangeably, you know, I won't hold it against you, but I mean, if you really want to be specific, the internet refers to the infrastructure, the cabling, everything else that comes with it that enables computers to run on the cloud. And the cloud refers to this collective term of all these computers that are running in data centers. And the internet is really just the term refers to the infrastructure that allows you to gain access to the cloud. So just, you know, wanted to give you a visual of that. So we talked about this idea of the internet being a collection of connected computers. How do you access computers in the cloud? And this is where we get to this idea of address and IP address. So an example, when you are bringing up your a web browser and you type in www.getsetup.io, that's an example of an address. Or we also call it a URL, and that stands for Uniform Resource Locator. And when you type in getsetup.io or google.com or amazon.com, the internet understands how to access the computer that is hosting this Get Set Up website. And so when we say just, you know, this is the address for Get Set Up, or this is the URL, this is what we're talking about right here. This is how you can access the computer that is running the Get Set Up website, or how you can access a particular application on, you know, that's running in the Google Cloud. It's using these addresses, or another word for an address is a URL. And so that's really what's happening here. There's a lot that goes into these these addresses, but just know, you're thinking, well, you know, when I run my app, you know, my mapping app, how does it know where to go? Or let's say if you're participating on a Zoom meeting and someone sends you a link to the Zoom meeting and you click on it. It's like, actually the way that the internet knows that your internet provider knows where to send you is because in that link, and we've all seen these links when we've been, when someone has sent it to us, who's hosting a Zoom meeting, within that link, there is actually the Zoom address of the computer that is hosting that Zoom meeting. That's how we know where to go. So Jim has a question. Your smartphone with mobile data can provide Wi-Fi to other devices using its own hotspot. Yes, that is right. If you ever can't get onto the Wi-Fi, you can use your phone as its own hotspot. And there was another question. Somebody else raised their hand. I'm sorry, I just missed it. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask away if you had a question before. Anyone? Okay, because I saw someone raise their hand. Sorry about that. Okay. IP addresses. Every computer that logs onto the network has something called an IP address. It's, let's say when you write a letter to someone and you put it in an envelope and address it. It has its own unique address, and you have your return address as well. It's similar. Every house, in the country has its own unique address. The same thing with computers, devices. Any device that logs onto the internet has its own, what we call IP address. And that's another way you can actually access different computers on the internet by using their IP address. Since most people don't like to use numbers, we tend to use addresses, letters instead. So we use these URLs to access different websites on different computers. And so URL, IP address, these all pertain to how do you access computers when they're running in the cloud, when they're on the internet. Anybody have any questions about addresses, about IP addresses? Anything?
I think law enforcement uses the IP sometimes to track down like child predators or things like that, and they can track it down to the device even though they're sneaky about hiding.
Yep, they are. That's exactly right, Carol. And I used to work for a company that was their business. It's called an anonymizer that bad people try to use.
And the IP address is also frequently used when you call tech support. They want your IP address for your machine so they can run tests on it. And they tell you how to get the IP address, or they tell you what the IP address is for your router when you're having router problems, and how you can access the menu to reset it and all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah,
Because
you're right.
It's not router.com. It's an IP address, 192.
Just like you see here. Yes, exactly. Because it's a device. A router is a device that's on the internet. Yep. Great. Thank you so much. More information than people ever thought that they would, is imaginable. Let's talk a little bit about cloud services. So we already talked about this idea of using cloud storage. And again, each different company that offers cloud storage has their own cloud. And the computers that are running on their cloud, they're separate from, iCloud has its own storage, Google Drive has its own separate storage application, and so on. So what are the different services? What are some of the things that, and again, these are computers, remember, that are stored in these data centers. They're racks and racks and racks, rows of computers, and they're all doing different things. Some of them are managing cloud storage and backup. You can move some of your data, move all or some of your data up to the cloud. Maybe you want to use it as a backup in case something happens to any of the files on your local drive. When you move data up to the cloud, some of these computers are also responsible for working with you to help you share data, share files with others. So that's another big benefit of using these iCloud storage apps. You can easily share files, photos, any of your data with others, and they can collaborate on those files with you. So that's file sharing. That's another service that's provided by companies that operate in the cloud. And then, of course, there are applications. So let's go back to that example of you're using one of these mapping apps on your smartphone. when you type in an address, because you either want to get directions or maybe you're looking for a map, you could be on your smartphone or even on your desktop. That request goes up to one of the computers in the cloud, and it depends on which app you're using. Apple's mapping app, Google, any of these. You will then go up to their computer in the cloud. And actually what's happening is you're not running the app. That map is not on your smartphone, on your device. It's actually located on a computer in the cloud. And then it will send it back down, that map, to you. And there are a lot of other applications that run in the cloud. For example, not only maps, but email. If you're using like Gmail, or if you're using Outlook, any of the emails, they also have the ability to run, online in the cloud. Calendar applications are also very popular, and so many more. Banking applications, many of these are now all of them are being run in the cloud. So these are just some examples of cloud storage. And don't forget, when we think about these computers that are on the cloud, that are in these data centers, they have their own hard drives, their own disks that are physically storing data on these hard drives and then transmitting them back down to you so that you can receive them, work on them on your laptop or desktop, smartphone, or tablet. So let me know if you have any questions about cloud services. I want to make sure everybody understands this idea of, it's referred to as master copy. So, it used to be that everybody had, a laptop or a desktop. And now these days we have a laptop, we have a smartphone, we have a tablet, maybe we have a desktop, we have lots of devices now. And we're running apps on all of these devices. So for example, you may send an email using your laptop and then close down your laptop or leave the house for a little while. If you hop onto your smartphone, that email that you sent, you have access to it from your smartphone or your tablet. And this is all because this information is being held in the cloud. And what we like to say is the master copy is stored in the cloud and you can access it from any device. And this is true if you decide to store certain data in the cloud. You can store it in the cloud, and then that single copy of that file or that application is then accessed from any of your devices. So one version accessed by multiple devices. Now, when we talk about syncing up your files, if you're going to keep certain files both locally on your PC as well as the cloud, that's a little bit different. There's some file syncing that has to go on. But just know, if you're on your tablet and you open up, Google Docs, let's say, and you modify a document and it's automatically saved, those changes will get written to the cloud. And then if you use your phone to access that same Google Docs, you'll be working off of the latest version. Whatever changes were made on your tablet, those changes will show up on your phone or on your PC. So it's one copy accessed by all your devices. Anybody have any questions about that? Nope. Okay, just stop. Yeah.
I have a question about photos. I discovered a while back that I've got photos that are stored with a program with Amazon, but I found out that they also are stored with Google, which I didn't realize that Google had them. And when I went to close out the Google account, it came back up and said that if I did that, it would delete all of my photos, even on my computer and my PC.
Okay,
Why
it
would
sounds like
it do that?
you probably have synchronization turned on, file synchronization. And you said it's both on Google Drive
Yeah, it's on Google
and Amazon. You're using Amazon's?
yeah.
Okay.
Plus, I've got it just in a document on the PC.
On your PC. So the document is separate from the photos, but it sounds like, are you also on a phone, Judy, too?
Yeah, I've got an iPhone, an iPad, and a PC.
Okay, so what's happening is your photos are being synchronized up to the cloud, and that you can turn your synchronization off. You can, when you turn on file synchronization, you can specify which folders, which entities are synced up to the cloud. And I can't go into details here because we do have other classes that talk about file synchronization, but
Okay.
that's what it sounds like. Because that's what happens when you turn on file synchronizations. When you delete something in one place, it will delete it all over the cloud, any device you have it on.
Okay, because I just, I don't like the idea of I've got things in 4 or 5 different places.
Yeah. And you can turn off, yeah.
Yeah,
You can
it's
turn off
like
synchronization.
putting something in a file cabinet and you've got it in 5 different files, and I don't see any sense in that.
Yeah, and I understand, and that's the question. People say, well, do I need to keep this in, 5 different clouds? It's like, no, you don't. You may start to run out of space if you're using some free versions of iCloud storage apps. And that's when some people, rather than pay for storage, which is not that expensive, they tend to use different clouds like Google Drive and iCloud. And so that's another way of getting around the space. Yeah.
Well, I got hit with that a while back.
Okay. Sorry about that. Paula, did you have a question?
Did. Can you just give me an idea what class it is that gets into synchronization?
Sure. I have a listing at the end of the other classes that we offer. I'll be happy to show that to you. Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So we have a number, we've talked a little bit about this. The fact that different companies offer different cloud services. And for those of you who are working on Apple devices, iPads, iPhones, MacBooks, you can use Apple's iCloud. That's their cloud services. And not only do they have storage, they have 5 gigabytes of free storage, and you'll need an Apple account to access Apple's iCloud. You can purchase additional storage for like $1 a month for 50 extra gigabytes. Now, Apple's iCloud, if you're on a Mac, if you're on a smartphone, iPad, if you're on a Windows machine, any machine that allows you to open up a web browser, and you can access your the iCloud, Apple's iCloud from there. And in addition to free storage, if you're going with just the free Apple account, you can also run these other apps in the cloud. Again, you're not running them. If you have a MacBook, you're not running them on your you're not installing them and running them on your PC. On your MacBook, you can run these apps in the cloud, and you'll be doing that anyway if you're on a smartphone, an iPhone, or an iPad. So this is Apple's iCloud. It allows you to have storage, and in addition, there are certain apps that you can run in the iCloud. And again, typically this is meant Apple's iCloud because Apple's a hardware company. They tend to focus on just their own devices, but You can also use iCloud if you're on a Windows machine, and then just, open up a web browser and get to the Apple's iCloud as well. Google also has its own set of cloud services. So Google is more open in that respect than Apple. You can access the Google Cloud and its apps. If you're running on a Mac, you're running on a iPhone, iPad, from a Windows machine, Android machines, Chromebook. And again, if you open up your device, open up a web browser and type out google.com, you can gain access to Google's cloud services. Now with Google, with their free account, they provide 15 gigabytes of free space. And for about $2 a month, it's actually, you can purchase an additional 100 gigabytes of space. I have to update this slide. And with your Google account, which is free, you have access to a host of Google apps that are running in the cloud. So we talked about Apple's cloud. This is the Google Cloud. And then Microsoft also has its own cloud. You can gain access to the Microsoft Cloud, which has storage plus these apps that are running from a Windows device, any MacBook, iPhone, iPad, an Android phone or tablet. And the same thing, you just open up a web browser and you can get to the OneDrive. It's actually called Microsoft 365. So for those of you who are running on Windows machines, I run on a Windows machine, you will have the OneDrive application installed. And the OneDrive, that is your cloud storage app. So you probably have seen it. With your OneDrive, the free storage app has 5 gigabytes. It comes with 5 gigabytes of storage. For $2 a month, you can upgrade that for an extra 100 gigabytes of storage. Now, with the Microsoft 365, you actually need to pay, I think it's like $8.25 a month. And when you do that, you have access to these additional Microsoft applications that are running in the cloud. For those of you who've been running Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, Excel, actually on your hard drive, you can now run these in the cloud. And then I'm just going to end class because we're over already. Class just flies by. Sorry about that. You've had so many great questions. In case you were interested, business is booming if you offer cloud services. This will just give you an idea of the growth, 25 to 30% annual growth over the past probably 10 years. These are the big guys, what they're pulling down every year. You may also notice that companies like Dell and HP are also getting into the cloud services business because there's a lot of money to be made. And Judy asked, do I have these if I use Microsoft Pro? I think Microsoft Pro, unless it's Microsoft 365, that's the cloud account. That's the Microsoft's cloud. I think Microsoft Pro 2019 might just be available for your local drive. That's a great question though. Let me find out. Microsoft Pro. I'll find out for you. So we talked a little bit about the basics of the cloud. What is the cloud versus what's the internet?
Vicky?
Yes, question.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, Jan asked a question. Do these work with Windows 10? Yes, they do. Yep, they sure do. We talked about what are some of the advantages of using the cloud applications, cloud storage. We talked about, the fact that there different companies manage their own clouds. There is Microsoft, Apple, Google, those are the big ones. They are cloud storage apps, as well as the services that they now offer in the cloud. And let me just go up to our Get Set Up site. There was a question was asked about Google Drive, OneCloud, iCloud. These are the related classes if you wanted to specifically understand a little bit more about using Google Drive, using Microsoft's OneDrive, and we also have a separate class on working with iCloud. And you can go up to the Get Set Up website and just search for Google Drive or OneDrive or iCloud, and you'll find those classes there. Okay. Anybody have any other questions about what we've talked about? I've gone over quite a bit. I'm just going to stop my share here. I apologize. I want to thank everybody for your questions. And in the after class notes, I have a couple of questions that I need to get back to folks on, so I will include that. Otherwise, I just wanted to thank you all for joining me today. I hope it was useful information. I hope it cleared up a few bits of confusion that folks may have about, what is this cloud? People keep saying, oh, it's in the cloud, or you can run it online. What do they mean? Well, this is what we mean about the cloud. And so have a great rest of your day. If you wanted to stay on for a couple of minutes, I'll be happy to answer some more questions. Other than that, take care, everyone. It's great to see you. And hopefully I'll see you in other classes as well.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
you
very
much. Take
Bye-bye,
care,
everyone.
everyone.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vicki.
You're
Take
so
care. Good
welcome.